Morning everyone, lovely to have you with me. It's Carol here at Oak House Journals. For me today it's a Margarete Miller assignment day. It's for her Collage Weekly Challenge of 2024. As you can see, I've got the prompts here for week 28 and I've got my usual piece of background paper with a border drawn around it, and I will be working inside that border. So let me go through the pieces that I've picked out to hit each of the prompts, and I don't change out and use the bonus prompt. I actually include it in my collages each week, so I just thought I'd mention that. So let me lift this away, and there's my bits and bobs for the prompts. The first one is a texture or pattern found in clothing. Well, I'm going to go with something very, very obvious. One of the textures that you find in clothing is the stitching, and I'm going to do a little bit of stitching on my piece today. Something associated with relaxation. I've got this. Now this is a label, as you can see, Tisserand aromatherapy label for a pulse point rollerball, and it's supposed to give me inner harmony, and I've particularly chosen it because of the colours and also these little hints of gold that are on here. I'm going to be using a second piece as well to hit this prompt, and for me something that is associated with relaxation is gardening and walking around gardens. So I've lifted out some flower images here, various shapes and sizes. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use as yet, but you can probably tell they're picking up some of the colours on this piece here and perhaps a little bit on there, so you can see why I've chosen those. I'm going to get around to auditioning which one I want to use in due course, so let me pop those to one side. So going on to prompt number 3, a repeating pattern. I've lifted this page out of an old Ranger diary, as you can see, and I've particularly chosen it because of the colour palette. Absolutely love the colours on here, and there are numerous repeating patterns. Not only the colours, but you've also got the shapes. So there are these sort of maroony coloured squares, there's these aqua blue rectangles that are repeating, and also the numbers. The next prompt is a positive affirmation. Well, one I always go to if I need to use or find or think of a positive affirmation is "you are enough." So I'm going to either write out or print out those words and use them somewhere on my collage. The next prompt is an image of a landscape or scenery. Now I've chosen this gorgeous image here. Absolutely loved it, love the colour tones, love the moodiness of the clouds, but with the hint of gold peeping through up at the top here behind the clouds where the sun's coming through. Love the fact that you can see the mountains in the background. Absolutely love the forest and vegetation here in the foreground. And the final thing here that absolutely ticks every box is the fact that there's snow. Absolutely adore snow. And now you can see why I'm looking towards this and these up here. They're going to blend perfectly and pick up the colours, and on here the little hints of gold are going to pick up the sun and the colours up here as well. So I'm not going to actually be working with this image. I'm going to be working with this one. It's exactly the same image, but if I put it on top, you can see it's substantially smaller. And why am I doing that? I'm going to work on my piece of paper in this portrait orientation. If I was going to be working in landscape, then this larger image would be absolutely perfect to go on there, and I could probably even go with something larger. But if I'm working in portrait, then it's not going to fit unless I cover most of it up, which I don't want to do, because I'm thinking I would pretty much like this as my focal element. That might change when I get my flower on it, but we'll see. But for now I'm thinking that because it's so gorgeous, will be my focal element. So I'm changing that one out and I'm bringing in my smaller one, and as you can see it fits nicely inside my border. So that's the one I'm going to be working with. And then finally the bonus prompt is a security envelope design. So I've got a security envelope here, as you can see. I've ripped it open And I'm going to be working with a portion of this because I love the blue colour tones. All right, let me pop these pieces to one side as I always do, bring in my working piece and have a little play and see what I can do to create my assignment this week. So as always, this goes in front of me to remind me not to forget anything. I'm going to move that one to one side as well and bring in my other pieces here. I'm going to move the flowers to one side as well because I'm not going to be working with those straight away. And I'm pretty much thinking that I'm going to go with this on here. Now it fits perfectly inside my working area, subject to a few little tweaks, trimming it down. So I'm going to go away and do that now. Okay, so I've got my piece of background paper trimmed to size, and as you can see I've trimmed it inside the bottom and the top border, and that was because I didn't want those rounded edges that were on the original page. I may well trim it down a little bit more, but for now I'm just going to go with that. And what I want to do is to try and get this on here so that I can pick up these purple tones or maroony tones on here and really work with those as my main repeating patterns. And I'm quite liking the white border on this image to make it stand out, but also blend in, or tie in rather, with the white surround that I've got on my working page. Now let me bring this in and see what I can do with this. And as I said before, I don't want to cover too much of this up. I want it to be my focal element. So I'm just going to bring this in and have a look at that. Now originally I thought that this white band here would work well with this border, but it's slightly off-white and I'm not liking it so much. And also it brings it down too much, I think. So I'm going to take that top white portion away. I'm going to trim this edge away here to get rid of all this writing. Yep. Now that is almost lost there, which I don't mind too much because what I can do is bring in my security envelope pattern design behind here and just rely on these areas here as my repeating pattern, or I can bring in my flowers. So let me look at what I've got. I've chosen this one because of the maroony tones in this tree here predominantly. This is a much lighter, but I'm not liking that, so I'm not going to use that one. I've got this one, which gives me interest down the left hand side. It's looking a little bit too big, particularly down here. Loving the play on colours, but I'm not actually liking this cream bit down here, even though it works with the background here. All right, so let me just change that one out. And actually, before I do that, I'm just going to cover it over to see whether it would work without that there, and just have the green coming down and cut it across at the bottom there. And it would if I moved it down slightly so that this piece of the stem is going below this piece, and that would work. So I'm going to put that to one side because I like that. Not so keen on this, although the colours work well. It's not a very sharp image, and that's what I'm finding a little bit difficult with that particular one. But I like how the flowers just curve round there, which gives me the opportunity to frame the words in a harmony. And if I do that, I can have it going off the edge of my page slightly, which adds interest. And actually that is working quite nicely. I might end up using that one. It's just a shame that the image is not quite sharp enough for me, really. I'd like a much sharper image. All right, so I'm going to take that one away because that's another possibility. What else have I got? So I've got this one. That's a lot more delicate than the other two. I can use this area here to give me that framing that I liked. Not liking this leaf at the bottom, but I can take that off. Colour tones work nicely. Oh dear, too many options. Okay, that one would work potentially. This one's much darker. And again, I can use that leaf to go around that little gold symbol there and still have my inner harmony words showing. It's a lot more moody and dominant than the other ones because it is so dark. So I'm going to discard this one. I've got two more here. Got this one, which I could pull in there, maybe something like that. Now this creamy white bit works better because I've put the two pieces closer together. If I went with something like this, again, I think your eye is struggling as to which is the focal element. It comes down to this first of all and then goes to that, and then it doesn't really know where to go with the surrounding background. And even if I reduced the background like that, it does help it. And I could do the same sort of thing here, but I'm not liking that, so I'm not going to go with that one. Let's pop that out of the way. And then this was a similar sort of image, but smaller and daintier. So let's try this one. No, that's not working at all. Okay, so we got rid of some of these, and I just need to now decide which of the three here that I've got, which one is going to win out. And I think this is the one I'm going to go with. I am going to trim it off down at the bottom here, and it's not the end of the world if I trim it off and I decide I don't like the fact that I've trimmed it off, for the simple reason that I can always glue it back on. So I'm just going to angle it and do a wee snip there. And then I'm going to again try and use my leaves to frame this a little bit. I'm going to move this up and over to the right a little bit like that. And as I said before, I'm using the stem to cover up the white section on this side, and I'm thinking that looks a lot nicer. I'm just going to pop this over the top to have another look. No, I want to go with that one. Okay, so that's that decision made. Finally. Okay, now the next thing I need to decide is how I want to place my piece of security envelope. And I'm wondering about whether I rip a portion and have it coming down here, or whether I use it to actually frame this a little bit on the right hand side so that it's not all side heavy down this side. So I'm going to rip that bit off there, and I'm going to trim this round on my guillotine so that I've got some nice straight edges that I can use. I'm just going to bring this one in first. Straight away I'm liking that. I'm wondering whether to cut a piece so that it actually comes out here and doesn't stop here. I'm going to take that one out, try and slide this one in, something like that. Now that I've got that bigger piece in there, I'm not really liking it. What's occurring to me is that if I need somewhere to put my positive affirmation, I could use this area down here, but I'm actually wondering about putting it up here, maybe across there, and as I say, almost have that still as my main focal element, in which case I don't need to have this big strip down here or this wider strip down here. I can keep that fairly thin there and here and mimic that here, and it actually means that I've still got these repeating pattern pieces in. So let me trim that off and I'll be back when I've got this in place. So there we go everybody, that's this background piece trimmed and in place. As you can see, the border is a lot smaller, and I'm just again playing with these pieces up here to see if I'm just going to reduce the size of the background. And the idea with that is to try and keep those pieces in sight and not get them lost with the rest of the background. The thing that I need to get on now is my texture, which is my stitching. So I'm going to go away and stitch all the way around here, that white border on my sewing machine. So there we go, everybody. You've just seen me smooth out my stitching on the reverse, just using my bone folder, and I've gone over the border here 3 times with machine stitching. Not very well at the top there, but I think that's probably where my positive affirmation is going to go, so I'm not too worried about that. The one time you want to stitch nice and neat, you can't do, but never mind. So I've got that, and I will be stitching around this background piece. I've decided to do that as well. So this will go in there like that, something along those lines. I didn't stitch down this edge because obviously that's where my flower is going to go, but I'm going to have it something more or less like that. I'm going to trim off this back portion here and print off my sentiment, or rather my positive affirmation. So let me just mark where I think I want to trim this back portion. So I'm going to put some glue behind this piece and this piece, not my flower yet, because I want to stitch around this outside edge of this background piece. And now I'm going to take it to my machine and, as I say, just stitch around the outside edge, just so that I have some more stitching to hit that prompt, which was texture that you find in clothing. So let me just do that. Again, 2 lines of single straight stitching on my sewing machine, and now I'm just going to glue my flower in place. And there we go. Printed off the words "you are enough." Now I did it in black first because I wondered whether or not the black would pick up the black on the word "inner harmony" here. It may well work, but I think I will probably go with this one, which is almost the same colour tones that I've got down here, this maroony colour. This was just a steel grey that I thought might be nice and might blend into the background. So either way, I will cut all of those out and see what they look like. But I'm thinking up in this area up here, I was going to say neck of the woods, but sorry for the pun there. So let me cut these out and glue this onto my background. Okay, so I've got my 3 positive affirmations cut out here. I'm thinking this is going to look too dark on here, so I'm not going with that one. This is nice, it's nice and soft, but I'm still leaning towards this one where I've managed to match up the colour tones. And in terms of placement, I was thinking I was going to have it up here where I've got that wonky stitching. I have played with it down here so that I'm covering up pulse point rollerball there. Whilst I like the placement down here, all the action, if you will, is going on down here, and I really want the eye to go up across my piece. So I did play with it there like that, which is where I thought I would have it originally, half on and half off, and yet it almost balances things out. But what I think would be nice would be to have it actually on the picture itself, so that it actually is framed by the picture and feels like it's incorporated into the collage rather than just placed on top. And the other thing that I thought might be nice would be to use some Distress Ink milled lavender, and I'm just going to scrape the edge, and hopefully just enough will come off onto the edge of my positive affirmation, so that it just gives it a little bit of detail. I've got enough of this gold sunlight coming through on this one and down here to pick up the gold on that. And I just think that softens that up a little bit by inking around the edges. I'm more or less happy with how it's come out. So let me quickly go through the prompts with you. Pop that on there like that. And the prompts, a texture or pattern found in clothing. Well, I went with texture, and I went with the usual texture that you find from stitching on clothing. So I've stitched around the outside edge of my background piece and also around my focal element there. Something associated with relaxation, well, I've gone with this Pulse Point Rollerball Pure Essential Oil called Inner Harmony, and also flowers, as in gardens, which are a huge source of relaxation for me, whether it's gardening or just walking around plants and being outside in the garden. A repeating pattern, well, I've gone with my numbers, my squares, and there are a few, 1, 2 and a couple up there, rectangles on this background piece. A positive affirmation, you are enough. An image of a landscape or scenery, well, it's this gorgeous one in the background there. And bonus, a security envelope design, and that is just tucked in behind here, acting as a bit of a frame for that focal element. So as always, everybody, thank you so much for being with me. Really enjoyed your company. The sun is out now, so it's a good time to finish so that you can get a better look of the assignment today. And as always, I'll put some photographs for you to have a look at. Happy crafting, have a great week, take care, bye bye now.